certain tasks that no computer can figure out and carry out mathematically. We need kind of a logical reasoning to shell it. And the other variant is a very striking desire and completeness in them and their statements that can neither prove that they're conscious without being correct or having a show of their own. But we dig them. So in this increasing of this world of abstraction, you do this in a vesicle and bezel-less. And let's crystal out this in Soul. And what is logic in this some way that is also an abstraction of all these mathematics that are the main thing to understand, that logic is not about figuring out what is true and what is forced. It's not about the true distinguishing truths for force. It's about the in focuses. It's all about the hunt to reliably identify the get the assumptions. So from one to the other one, and that set of conclusions. It's not about whether things are wrong or right. It's out if I look at E equals mc squared, like Newton's basic noteful connection between power and essence, the equation, then whether this is true or false is people doing physics. It's not for magicians. The question for mathematicians in this physics, in these, is connected to the questions in themselves. So I ask, if F equals ma, then what comes out of it? Okay. So this is kind of a mathematical mistake. If this is true, then the other thing is not. And I don't concern myself with whether this is true or not. I listen to the world and I don't care. And I care about my intellectual activity. And this kind of irrelevant to me, and math experts can show all of this to me. And what I am sure about is that if whenever, wherever we're meant to be together, I'll be here, you'll be there. And that's the deal, my dear. And then the opposite of the OP is EP, divided by play time. And we take a higher level of construction in that Zen and reason the baseline at Soul. So if it doesn't make sense what I'm saying here, then I'll have no distinction there too. And that's the implication. If F equals an A, then it can be questioned. If I want to be substantiated again, then I know this is true indeed. And X times Z equals a very special number that I can conclude from it, and in that same stem of logic and that construction, I can understand how to reliably reach constructions out of the illusion. I don't have to ask what is true, what is false. That's an example. Probably the most famous one of all, logical defilement, maybe. It's a dissolved argument of the tube author sake for it. And he said that he made one of the first logicians, indeed following a very pessimistic reasoning. If all men out, then and the end is near, and therefore I am. And that's what I recommend you read into. I'm in Maud. And that's a very good example of logic and reasoning being the opposite sides of the spectrum of figuring out if all men are motor or not. So if you make this assumption, then you get to that conclusion, and logic is making that reliable. And my first reaction to all of this is I'm showing you this so that you can donate a new energy into the old battery. And I tell you that if all is well and equals AO, then black, and totally in an all-consuming way, then Tweety, the bird, is a crow. And I ask myself again and again, is this the way of drawing conclusions to the assumptions? And if you tell me no, it's honest is not enough, then this kind of varied implication for this in white implication, what need not. Maybe in common sense that's enough. If you're smart enough, and if you're not and nothing helps, then, well, what's the point to all of this? That's how I tell you on that very simple level, very straightforward. In a more complicated way, turns out that if we just rely on our common senses, then we can get ourselves into trouble. Here are a few of examples that you've mentioned for, and they're called the Vyasas. The Vassal paradox. Do you know this one? So if you're still talking about Socrates, don't. That's not really interesting. Or spontaneous. You'll get at the point. I've been teaching it for I don't know how long. I don't want to embarrass myself with it.